This is Audible.
Brilliance Audio. Death Row by Frida McFadden. From Alibis, a collection of Amazon original stories. Performed by Lauren Allman. Prologue. My name is Talia Kemper, and with my time running short, there are a few things I need you to know about me. First, I am currently on death row for murdering my husband. Second, my attorney has filed one last appeal, but if that is rejected, I will be executed by lethal injection in 2 weeks. And last, I am innocent. I didn't kill my husband. Chapter 1. Present Day. It's entirely possible that being on death row is worse than death. I can't say for sure, since I haven't yet experienced death. We'll have an update on that soon. But I have experienced death row, and it's hard to imagine anything much worse. The worst part about death row is the seclusion. Prisoners on death row are kept isolated from the rest of the prisoners. We get a single cell, and we don't eat in the dining hall with all the rest of the prisoners. When we go out in the prison yard, it's always alone with a guard. You might think, hey, great, who wants to share a crowded cell with a bunch of other women? When I first heard that I'd be avoiding Gen Pop, I didn't think it sounded so bad. I had heard horror stories about maximum security prisons. I imagined being beaten or raped or stabbed with a shiv while the guards were looking the other way. But no, this is worse. Much worse. Currently, I am lying on the bed in my cell. I spend 23 hours of the day in this cell, which is roughly the size of a parking space. Humans are not designed to be locked in a cage for 95% of the day. I have a small bed that is really just a metal slab attached to the wall, covered by a thin mattress. Actually, calling it a mattress is a stretch. It's more like a thick blanket that has been folded over a couple of times. There's a small desk with a stool that is also welded to the wall. And of course, a metal toilet and sink. If I roll to my side on this sorry excuse for a bed, I can just barely see the one tiny window, only slightly larger than my hand, which is close to the ceiling. I'd have to stand on my bed in order to see outside, although there's not much of a view, which Noel always says is the most important thing about picking a place to live. That was what he used to say, at least, before he was murdered. Occasionally, I get to shower, a rare treat, but I often wash my body at the sink with a rag and chemical-smelling soap. The only people I ever talk to are the guards, and it's not like we're having any great conversations. Visitors are rare. Usually, it's just my lawyer, Clarence Bowman. Whenever I leave this cell, I am shackled. I'm allowed to go into the yard for 1 hour each day, although I am put in a different cage within the yard. They treat me like a wild animal that could turn on them at any time. But I suppose if they really think I'm a murderer, that makes sense. Who knows what I'm capable of? Kemper, a voice jerks me from my self-pitying thoughts. Food. I sit up from the faux mattress, my back screaming in pain. It's supposed to be good for the back to sleep on a hard, flat surface, but there's nothing good about this bed. There's also nothing good about the food delivered to my cell, which is slid through a narrow slit in the door. Breakfast is delivered at 6 in the morning, lunch at 11, then dinner at 4:30. It's dinner time, the voice adds. It's Correctional Officer Rhea Clark. I'm supposed to call COs by